Welcome to the Grow My Salon Business podcast, where we focus on the business side of hairdressing. I'm your host, Anthony Whitaker, and I'll be talking to thought leaders in the hairdressing industry, discussing insightful, provocative, and inspiring ideas that matter. So get ready to learn, get ready to be challenged, get ready to be inspired, and most importantly, get ready to grow your salon business. Hey, it's Anthony here, and welcome to today's podcast. I have often talked about the incredible opportunities that are available within the hairdressing industry for those that are ambitious and prepared to put the hard work in. Now, for some people, the opportunities combined with ambition lead to opening an independent salon business of their own. But for others, they want a salon of their own, but they see the opportunities that being part of a bigger business presents. And so they go down the franchise route. Now, being part of a franchise business definitely brings with it many advantages and opportunities that a smaller independent salon can't always access. So my guest on today's podcast is Michael Tuff, and Michael is from the Headmasters Salon group here in the UK, and he has 3 franchise salons within the group. So in today's podcast, we're going to discuss how the franchise business model works, the opportunities that a franchise business presents, and what the keys are to successful expansion, and lots more. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Michael.
Hi, Anthony. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
No, thank you. I know you're obviously a very busy man, so I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend time with us doing the podcast.
Yeah,
so, Michael, let's do what I usually do with people. I always start off with essentially getting them to introduce themselves. So, who is Michael Tuff? Give us your sort of 2-minute backstory, and then we can dig into the details.
Okay, so I'm Michael Tuff. I've been in the hairdressing industry for almost 20 years. I've got 3 Headmasters franchises in different areas across London, kind of southeast. And started hairdressing at a young age. It's kind of part of me. It's who I am. I love it. I can't imagine doing anything else. And ready to go.
Good. Okay. Just for context, obviously a lot of people in the UK will be very familiar with Headmasters as a brand. Outside of the UK, a lot of people won't associate with it because they won't know what it's all about. So could you sort of just say what would be the target market of Headmasters? How are they sort of positioned as a brand?
I mean, I'd like to think we appeal or attract a wide audience or demographic of client. But I think the majority of our clients tend to be female, kind of over 30, between 35, 45. And, I think they just want that beautiful, beautiful finish, great hair, feel glamorous and feel good about themselves.
Okay. And where would you say you're positioned in the market? At the value end, the budget end, or more at the premium
The premium end, yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I think so too. Okay. All right. And how many salons do they have in the group in total?
56 salons.
56, right. 56, and you have 3 of them. Okay, so within those 3 salons, how many people are you responsible for on your team?
So I've got 52 staff members across the 3 salons. Windsor has the biggest team with 24. And then Farnham and Cobham have 12. They have 14 each, I think. So
right. And I know from our discussion before that you actually started with the group as an apprentice. Yeah. So are we talking 16, 17 years of age?
Yeah. So finished school, realised that the classroom environment definitely wasn't for me, and that an apprenticeship was probably the way to go. And stumbled across Headmasters as I was out shopping with my mum for the day. Walked in, asked for an apprenticeship, and they interviewed me on the spot in the Headmasters site in Guildford. And I started a couple of days later.
Great, fantastic! What a great advertisement for a career in hairdressing. Okay, so why did you decide? So you started off there as an apprentice. You did your training, then you became a stylist. Yeah. And obviously you're ambitious, and then you wanted more, and you obviously thought about having a salon of your own at some point, obviously pretty quickly, I'm imagining, in the journey. Why did you decide to go down the franchise route as opposed to starting a totally independent business?
I think if I'm honest, I don't think I really had the confidence to go out on my own. And I think I always thought that to have your own salon and to have your own name above the door, you kind of needed to be maybe really recognized within the industry, maybe really prominent in industry competitions and that kind of thing. And I think I just like, I love the brand. It's what I've always known. And I think just having that support and just knowing that you're part of something, um, you're never going to feel on your own, I suppose. And yeah, just it gave me the confidence, I think, to do it with them rather than going solo. It just never appealed to me. I don't think going on my own.
Okay, okay. So with a franchise business, when you decide, okay, I want to get a franchise, I want to get a salon. How does that process sort of work? Is there
Yeah.
is it common knowledge within the group that if you want a franchise, you can apply for it, and you'll go through a process? Is there a training program? What does that look
Yeah.
like?
So I think when I first showed interest in wanting to go down the franchise route, the company was at a stage where we were growing quite quickly, and the
Mm.
whole franchising idea was talked about, advertised quite a lot, and the company was growing very quickly. So yeah, it was something that it was kind of part of the journey. I think it was like, right, for me, it was always going to be apprentice, stylist, manager, franchisee. That was kind of the path that I knew I was going to take. But there's lots of other routes
Yeah.
I could have gone, but that was kind of the route that I knew that I was going to take. So yeah, it was at the time they used to hold Headmasters used to hold franchise evenings where you could go to head office and they'd host events to talk about what it entailed and what it involved. And yeah, so
Mm.
it was
Okay, so how old were you when you got your first salon?
Windsor was the first one. So Windsor is 6 years old now. So I was 29. I
Oh,
always
okay.
had it in my mind that I wanted the first one before I was 30, and I
Right.
just got into the Windsor salon 6 months before I turned 30. So I was on a bit of a mission
Yeah,
with that
yeah.
one.
Okay, so you spent a fair bit of time in a management
Yeah,
role, a stylist role, then a management
yeah.
role before you took that next
Yeah,
step.
yeah. I
Yeah, okay.
went on to become manager or assistant manager of the first salon that I worked in, or the first headmaster salon. And then the franchise owner of the first salon that I worked in went on and opened another franchise, and then the opportunity came up for me to manage that as salon manager. So I went on to the next salon and did that. So yeah, that's how the journey
Okay.
started.
All right. So one and then two and then
Yeah.
three. Ambitions for more?
I don't know. I think I feel like I've got a good balance at the moment,
Okay.
and yeah, I can't quite work out if I could spread myself anymore. But never say
Mm.
never. If an
Yeah.
opportunity came along and it felt right, then yeah, I'm sure I could be swayed.
Yeah. So when you started the second one and the third
Yeah.
one, was that were they new locations, or were you taking over an existing location that someone else had that they wanted out of for
Yeah,
whatever reason?
so Windsor, the first salon is the only location which was a brand new location, and the second and
Hmm.
third salons were both takeovers from previous franchisees. So yeah, I wouldn't say they were rescues, but both of them
Mm.
needed improvements.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the hardest part of setting up a salon is the early days, and
Mm.
it's being in there all day, every day, getting your name on the map within the local area and all that kind of stuff. And I think
Mm.
that the second and third salon that had kind of already been done for us or for me. So it
Mm.
was, yeah, a little bit easier with those two, I think, in some ways.
Yeah, that's interesting. As you're talking about that, I'm thinking that's another advantage of being in a franchise
Yeah,
business is that you've got an easy exit to sell to someone
yeah,
else. Whereas if you've got an independent salon, a lot of independent salons, they never sold, they just closed down and walked away
yeah,
from. Whereas if it was I know you said it wasn't, but if it was a rescue situation where someone thought, look, I just can't do this just isn't
yeah,
working, that they have an easy way out of that to get someone else within the group to take their business over.
Yeah.
So that's yet another advantage of being in a franchise. So, on that note, what have been the advantages and disadvantages, do you think, if someone was looking at a franchise opportunity? What would you say? Well, listen, these are the advantages, these are the disadvantages.
So I think being part of something bigger, the heritage, the support that you get from the brand, from a marketing perspective, but and I think being part of that, there's a real kind of safety blanket. But from a disadvantage point of view, there are times where potentially different campaigns maybe may not work for your different areas, or the salon's needs might be different. So, for example, one salon might be really established and doing really well, and then we go doing a colour sale across the whole group, and the salon that's doing really well doesn't really need it, but the other two might do.
Yeah.
So, there's times where campaigns and things like that maybe work or don't work. But I would say that the advantages definitely outweigh the disadvantages.
Yeah. Are you still behind the chair?
Yeah, so actually this year I made the tough decision to cut down another day. So at the moment I do one full day of hairdressing in each salon, and then sort of float around meeting the managers and working and coaching them the rest of the time. But yeah, it's that's probably one of the hardest things actually, was stepping back from my clients, because you're a hairdresser, but at the heart that's what you are. And then when the job kind of, or your role evolves, and you're not just a hairdresser anymore, you're the business. You've got to think about the business as well. That's quite a difficult transition. That's something that I've definitely struggled with.
Yeah. What do you enjoy the most? I mean, obviously you enjoy business, but obviously you did enjoy hair. Is it been part of your journey, and you're really sort of thinking, I love this part of it, the business element, and being responsible for a team and bringing other people on?
I do really enjoy the business side of it. I think I like the balance that I've got. I like being able to still do some hair. I like being involved with looking after the managers, supporting the managers. And now I have got a bit more time, or I've allowed myself more time, being able to focus on actually expanding and growing the business, rather than just feeling like you're just surviving each week by week and just trying to get through the week. So I enjoy how varied it can be. I think I've got to a point where just standing behind a chair all day probably wasn't enough for me anymore. So that's why having the variety of going to different salons, and each salon's needs are so different. So getting your head in the game for each salon as you're heading there, and just adjusting, I think.
Yeah, okay. And with franchises, I know there'll be a lot of people listening to this that will be curious about, well, how does a franchise actually work? How do you pay the group? Do they take a percentage of what your total revenue is, or is it a fixed amount of in our case, pounds or dollars or euros, depending on where our listeners are? How does that actually work?
So it's done as a percentage of your turnover. It's roughly 9% on your turnover, and then there's a small fee for marketing and art team contribution as well. But it's essentially a percentage of your turnover. Yeah.
Right, okay. Now, I need to jump in there and address something too. North American audience, they don't use the word turnover when they talk about sales revenue. They will call it sales revenue or total sales. And so where it gets confusing is when we say turnover, they use the word turnover purely to mean staff.
Okay.
So when you talk about total turnover, what you're meaning is total sales, total revenue that's generated. And out of that, as you just alluded to, you get some other sort of benefits. So you said a marketing and a training fee. Is that included in that, or is that on top of that?
So as part of your franchise fee, you get support with your accounts, payroll, HR, lots of different support with marketing, social media, all that kind of stuff. Sorry.
So no, no. So those costs are all absorbed within that
within the
9% that you take off the
yeah
top.
within the
Right.
9%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. So you don't have to do the payroll, or you do still do the payroll yourself, or that's all
Yeah,
outsourced?
it's done by headmasters.
Yeah.
You know, I need to let them know what everyone's doing, essentially. But yeah, they do the payroll for us. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I think people are often curious about how that side of it works, and that is one of the huge advantages. You get so much support as being part of something bigger, and you get access to a lot of resources and people, information, and as you've alluded to a couple of times, training and marketing. And I know that Headmasters are very big and always have been big on the training and marketing side of it. I know you even have your own academy, don't you?
Yes, yeah, we've got two
Yeah,
academies actually. One academy that's
right.
specifically for apprentices, for them to gain their hairdressing qualification. And then we've got our senior academy in London, which is more for stylist education.
Right. Okay. And how do you finance a franchise? So if you're, I mean, I'm not asking you what your personal financial situation is, but if you're you said 29, 29-year-old stylist, and you're thinking, I want to have a
Yeah.
franchise, but it's going to cost, because the headmasters fit outs are beautiful. You know,
Yeah.
they, as you said at the beginning, there you aim for the upper end of the market. I'm not sure the exact term you use, but that's basically what we were
Yeah.
saying. It's more the sort of affordable luxury end of the
Yeah.
market. And your salon fit outs are very much reflective of that. So I suppose what I'm saying is they're not
Yeah.
cheap.
Beautiful,
And
but expensive.
and the locate yeah, exactly. And the locations that you
Yes.
are in are not cheap either in terms of rent,
Yeah.
etc. So as a young 29-year-old or whatever age someone
Yeah.
is thinking, I want to get a franchise with Headmasters, but it's going to cost X hundred
Yeah.
thousand to fit out a salon, because you're probably talking 200-300 grand, I imagine, in a lot of cases. Where do they get their hands on that sort of money, or does the business finance them into it? Does the business sort of act as a bank?
Yeah. So mine, I'm happy to be honest with my situation. It was a combination of a lot of saving, a little bit of help from mum and dad,
Mm,
and then a big fat bank loan from HSBC.
right. Okay.
So
Good.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it was funded.
Well, I think it's always good that you've got that skin in the game,
Yeah,
especially at the beginning, that you say, like, saving.
yeah,
So it's a goal of yours. You're putting money aside from this, and it's handy if you can have the bank of mum and dad, and then, an inevitable sort of bank loan.
yeah,
Let me ask you this about being a franchisee. I mean, you're obviously a successful franchisee because you've got 3 salons under your ownership. What is it that makes someone a successful franchisee, not just in Headmasters, but in any salon group or in any franchise business? What are the keys to success?
I think I think a big part of it is you need to make sure that you're engaging with the brand. I think it's about acknowledging the advantages and the disadvantages, but knowing when to. I think creating a strong culture is really important from the offset.
Mm.
Recognizing the advantages and disadvantages, but also knowing when when to pick a fight. When is that something that I want to stand up for, or can I work with that? It's about sort of give and take, I think. So yeah, I think it's about l- supporting the brand. I think loving the brand, that's a big part of it as well. That's something
Mm.
that it's always been really important to me from the beginning. I've always been part of it, and believing in what we're all about, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. And when you got the first one up and running,
Yeah.
then the opportunity came along. Was it? Were you looking for the second one? Or did the opportunity just come and someone said to you, Michael, the first one's going really well. There's an opportunity to take over another one. Are you interested? Did you go, hell yeah? Or was it like, okay, I've got one. I want to get to 3 as fast as I can? Or
Yeah.
what was that sort of strategy?
Yeah. So the plan was never to have more than one. The plan was
Mhm.
always just to have one. And then the opportunity came up for number two. And, I'll be honest, it didn't entail a huge amount of financial input because of the situation. And yeah, I think it just felt right. It felt like the right thing to do. I had great support and a great support team with my managers at Windsor. which was the first salon. And I think that, it just kind of fell into place. And it's one of those things, isn't it? If you don't jump in and do it, are you ever going to know? You've just got to kind of throw yourself into it and hope for the best.
Yeah, well, that's actually something I was going to ask you. When you just said you throw yourself in and you don't know if you don't try. Is there anything you wish you'd known before you became a business owner?
How hard it was going to be, how little you were going to be able to pay yourself for a really long time. But I think now, 6-7 years down the line, those kind of memories feel like distant memories. But when as a group, we have quite demanding opening hours. We're open 7 days a week. And when you're in that first salon, you don't ever want anyone else to be there without you. You're there 7 days a week, 12-hour days. I think the excitement of having your own business and being your own business, being the boss, I think that excitement kind of overtakes everything. And then when you're in the reality of it, you kind of realise how hard it's going to be. But yeah, thankfully, that's in the past and it's all got a lot easier.
Yeah. Okay. So what would you say the key is to successful expansion? Because as you said, like you've got 3 and you're sort of feeling I've got a sweet spot here and this is quite good. Is there anyone else in the business that has 3 or more than 3?
Yeah. There's a couple of other franchisees that have more than one. My business partner is actually the franchise owner of the franchise that I started in.
Right.
So he has 2 other salons as well. So he has 5. He's a part of 5 salons altogether. And and then there's a couple of other franchisees that have more than one. I think the key is probably having presence in the salons. And although that's getting harder with having more, but having the support of a great team around you, the support of your managers, and, just kind of checking in with them, making sure that they're happy, but definitely having presence, I think, is really important, and making sure that you're seen as much as possible, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So that's why you spend time in all 3 salons behind the chair, and you're very seen by everyone who works.
Yeah, I think you need to be leading by example. I think that people need to see you. They need to see you with clients, see how you engage and interact with clients, and see what it's all about. You need to be able to direct and steer the boat from the front.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this question. As a salon owner responsible for how many people did you say? 56 odd people?
52, I think, yeah.
52 people.
Yeah.
So there's 56 salons and you've got 52 people that you're responsible for in your 3 salons. Yeah. So I want to ask you that question. What is the key to getting your team productive? Because if you don't have a productive team, and that's often the thing when people expand and go from 1 salon to 2 to 3 to 4, is that they recognize they can't be everywhere at once. And so productivity levels start to slip. Yeah. What would you say the key is to driving a productive team?
So I think it's all about creating inclusion, definitely making sure that you are offering opportunities for people, offering growth. People want to be able to feel that they have opportunities to grow and develop their skills. But I think it's for everyone's different, but potentially leading by example is key. Creating different incentives with competitions, maybe. We also do like regular appraisals, so we call them PFSs, which are personal focus sessions. We try to do those every 6 to 8 weeks with each team member.
Yeah.
But just checking in with people, making sure that they're okay, and not being out of reach, I think, is important. I think all of my team members know that they could call me any time of any day. And that I'm always there for them. So being supportive and just being there for people.
At a personal level, not just a professional level.
I think so. I think it's important to really look after people. That's definitely the key. If you want people to work well for you and to work hard for you, you've really got to look after them. So I think that's really important.
Okay. And if you've got people on the team that are not performing, that it's all a one-way
Yeah,
street and you're putting a lot in to grow people and develop people and create opportunities for them, but they just aren't budging.
yeah,
What's your sort of approach to that? Because I mean, I think Headmasters is a great brand. I think it's they occupy a really good niche positioning or niche positioning in the market, but inevitably any business you're sometimes going to have people that simply don't make
yeah,
it, they don't make the grade, so to
yeah.
speak. How do you personally deal with those sort of situations?
Well, firstly, you need to find out why they're not performing. If they're, for a reason, if they're underperforming, is it that they need more education? Do they need more support? Do they need more one-on-one time, more coaching? Normally, it's one of those things. Normally, it's one of those reasons. And if it's not, then they're unhappy about something. And then, you just need to dig a bit deeper and find out what it is that they're maybe not happy about. And then
Mm.
I think if you've ticked all of those boxes with education, support, growing their knowledge, their confidence, all of that stuff, if you've ticked all those boxes and they're still not performing, then we tend to go down more of a performance review route. So we'll set them
Hmm.
targets and they would be expected to hit those targets within a time frame. And we would kind of manage it in that situation, in that route, I would say.
Right, so you manage them, their performance to improve, or you manage them out of the business,
Yeah,
like, because ultimately that's what you have to do, isn't it?
effectively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, one of the things that I often think is a problem, like most salons don't even get to their 10th birthday.
Yeah.
Okay. Most small businesses do not last 10 years. And that's just the reality, not just in hairdressing, in business, full stop. Most small businesses don't actually achieve their 10th birthday. And that is one of the great advantages, again, of a franchise is that if, Joe Schmo goes out today and opens their own salon, the odds against them succeeding are big. That is just the reality that most salons don't succeed. However, if Joe Schmo goes out today and opens a salon as part of a franchise, the odds of them succeeding are dramatically increased because of the infrastructure and the support and the brand
Mm.
recognition, etc., around them, which is another advantage of people getting into a franchise. But there's an expression, I don't know who first said it, but I'll use it here because it's very relevant, is that for well-established businesses, it's not just about getting new ideas
Yeah.
in, it's about getting old ideas
Yeah.
out. Now, you're young, okay? You may not think you're young, but I still think you're very young. So, and you sort of alluded to this a minute ago. Maybe that wasn't what you were really meaning, but I suppose what I want to ask you about is this: your team are even younger
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
you. So majority of your
Yeah.
team, just being this industry, are going to be in their
Yeah.
20s. And one of the things that a lot of salon owners these days really grapple with all over the world is, and it's maybe been amplified through COVID, and that is that people have different work life expectations now. They have a different
Yeah.
balance, have a different work ethic, they want different things. And I suppose if there was one word that summed it all up, it would be flexibility. So I suppose where I'm sort of going with this is that as part of a big group,
Yeah.
it's often that's been established for a long time. It's often hard to change the direction, the values, the way we do it
Yeah.
here. Okay. But to be successful today, you need to
Yeah.
change. So, what I'm asking you is flexibility is the buzzword of today. Most of your team are probably in their 20s. What do you do as a salon owner of 3 salons with 52 people responsible for? What are some of the things that you do today to create more flexibility that if you went back in time 10, 15 years when you were starting out, that there was just no way
Mm.
that would happen?
Yeah. This has been a difficult challenge, like you say, since COVID, creating more flexibility. People's kind of work-life balance struggle has been more prevalent. But I think we've tried our best to be as flexible as we can. But I think it's about compromise and making sure that staff members understand the balance of what it's all about, really. I think we're happy to be flexible with working hours and days and hours that they work and that kind of thing. But we've got to, at the end of the day, we've got a business to run, and we need to meet the business needs, the client needs, and the staff members' needs. So it's been a struggle across that, I think. But I would say we're doing all right with it. We haven't lost. I don't think I've lost anyone because of not being flexible enough. And it would be really important to me if I had lost somebody because of that. It would be important to me to learn from it and review what we're doing. And if there's anything that we can do to be more flexible, then we will do.
Yeah. And is that something that sort of comes down from the top, so to speak, as part of a bigger group? Or is that Michael's own, sort of experience as a young guy, as a young salon owner with a group of young people that, of course, you need to be more flexible. But like, how does that work? Is it something that as an organization with 56 salons that you have like managers meetings where you toss all this sort of thing about and you're constantly evolving what your standards, values, expectations are as a brand, or is it something that's been more individual and it's Michael's take on how things need to be?
I think we always, I mean, as a group, we do have regular meetings as managers. Also some of the other franchisees and managers have become my friends over the years, so I can discuss things with them if I want to. But I think I've always, I've always made sure that I've got my ear to the ground and I know what's going on with the teams, and I like to try and put myself in their position. And if I would never ask something of them that I wouldn't do myself. I think that's the bottom line, and that's important. So I definitely have tried to be as adaptable and flexible over the years as much as possible, really.
What are some of the hurdles that you've had to overcome as a business owner?
I mean, COVID was tough. COVID was really tough.
Now, was that an advantage to be part of a big group?
Definitely. The fact that we had the directors and some of the senior management team for Headmasters, they had the information that was it was available to us, but maybe wasn't very easy to understand, or some of the support that we got from the government and that kind of thing. It was fed to us from the senior management team, and they kind of guided us through it. That support was definitely much needed at that time. But yeah, I remember when we had that call to say we were closing the doors and we didn't know when we were reopening again. That was scary.
Yeah,
very scary.
I can imagine. Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that you touched on before, when you said you went from one salon to three salons, and you've sort of touched on it a couple of times. You said they're very different salons. They have different demands, different situation there. As you're talking about that, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, the culture is different in each of those salons.
Yeah.
That word culture is a difficult thing to sometimes nail down as to what exactly do you mean by that. But yeah, the culture is different in those different salons, as well as the location. Obviously, maybe that some of them have got a newer decor or an older decor, whatever. But what I want to ask you is, what's the key to creating a salon culture? Because if you're taking over your first salon, you sort of alluded to the fact that's got a really good culture. It's a successful business. Yeah. And then you're taking over a second one that maybe didn't have quite the culture that it needed. What are the things that you try and do to change, to give a business the culture that it needs to succeed?
Well, I think it's important to make sure, I've said this before, but it's important to be leading by example for sure. And then I think you need your managers to almost be thinking like you think. I don't want them to be robots or clones of me. I definitely want them to do it their own way and find their own individual way to manage. But it's about getting them to have a very similar thought process in how they would deal with things, similar to the way you would deal with things. But like you say, I would say about creating consistency within the salons and making sure that what you are doing is consistent across the board. But it's tough to build a strong culture within a salon. But once you've got it and it's there, it's amazing when you can stand back and look at it and realize that's what we've created, that strong culture.
Yeah. Again, some of that comes from being part of a franchise, doesn't it? Because the franchise itself has a culture, has a brand ethos, has an identity about it, which already establishes that to some degree.
I guess.
But ultimately, the culture is always about the people in it, isn't it? You know, so if a business isn't working, it's obviously, or not obviously, it's sometimes because the people in that business, it's not working because of them. So we need to change the people around to change the culture. There's an expression I've always loved it. It's change the people or change the people. If you get what I'm saying, do you know what I mean? Like, because that is what changes the culture. The people make up the culture. So sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to say that, but you know, part of being a strong leader is about repeating yourself and repeating the same message for it really to get through to people. And sometimes you'll get sick of saying the same thing over and over and over again. But just because you're saying it over and over again doesn't mean that they've all heard it over and over again. So to really embed that culture within a team, I think you just have to become a puppet that not a puppet, but somebody that repeats the same thing over and over again to get that message across.
Okay. All right. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was retail.
Yeah.
Because I know your business is it's a successful salon at every level, and retail has always played a big part in the Headmasters brand. So talk to me about retail. What percentage of your total revenue would come from retail?
So this really varies from salon to salon. I mean, at the moment, the Windsor salon, so my first salon, the average is around 16-17%. But the newest salon, my Farnham salon, kind of fluctuates from like 11 to 14%. So it really varies, anywhere between 11 and probably just under 20%, I would say.
Right. Well, they're still good numbers.
Yeah, they are good numbers.
You know, they're certainly way above the average for salons in the UK to be doing those sort of numbers, which is good. And do you find that, in your time in business, is that changing? I mean, basically, I'm asking about the internet. Has online sales impacted on your in-salon retail, or is there no direct correlation at all?
I think that's really hard to measure, isn't it? I don't know how we would ever measure whether that's really affected us. But the message that I always put across to the teams is that all we can do is make sure that we're educating our clients as best as possible so that they feel, whether they buy the retail from us or they buy it online, that we're educating them, advising them, recommending them as much as possible. And whether they go and buy it there or they buy it here, we've still done our job, you know?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my take on it as well. So when we talk about your team as part of a franchise business, are you responsible for how they're paid? Or is it a system that runs right through the franchise business that this is how we pay our people?
Yeah.
They earn a set wage, they earn this percentage, blah, blah, blah. How does that work?
Yeah, so it's a structure that's created by Headmasters that runs across the whole group. It's a commission, it's a fixed basic pay structure that also has bonuses with as part of the commission structure. So there's an initial basic pay rate, and then they basically take either or, so it's the greater of the two. So once the commission outweighs the basic pay, then they take their commission as opposed to the basic.
And is it a flat commission for everybody, or is there a staggered commission system? How does that work?
So the commission grows, so it starts off at 30% and then it goes up to 50%. So when they hit a certain amount of takings within that week, then the commission goes up to, the commission grows as their takings grow. Okay.
So it's very much, those commission percentages, the triggers, are very much based on performance.
100%.
They're not based on how long you've been there or how old you are or, anything like that. There's a very clear system that everybody can see. It's transparent. Yes. Like the reason he's earning more or she's earning more is because she does more. So if I do more, I'll earn more as well.
Yeah. You've just got to be good at what you do, look after your clients and, be busy.
Okay. So how many different levels do you have in the salon? Like, what is it, like stylers, top stylers, senior
Yeah,
stylers? How does
we've
that
got a
work?
few actually. I think we've got 8 different levels. So it starts off at stylist, then senior stylist, designer, master hair designer. So yeah, there's a few levels. And I think it basically works out at about a 5% increase per level. And then
Yeah.
when you get to the top couple of levels, it's a little bit more than 5%. But yeah, it's roughly 5% growth on each level.
Okay. And in terms of the price point for their work,
Yes,
how they're
yes. Sorry,
charging it
their
out, it goes up
prices.
at like a
Yeah,
5%
so
increment.
we have two separate different. So there's two sides to it. There's 4 levels within color,
Yeah.
and the basic level being technician, then going up to L'Oreal color specialist, and
Mhm.
then there's 8 levels within cutting and styling.
Right. Okay. And so what determines when you get promoted from one level to the next?
Yeah.
Is it like client retention rates or rebooking rates or average bill, or what is it that says, okay, you're ready to go from a level two to a level
Yeah,
three?
so it's a combination of a few things. It's a combination of their rebooking, their request rate, and their overall takings.
Mhm.
Obviously, we look at their skill set within that as well to make sure that their skill set reflects where they're at. But I think it would be quite difficult to have a high client retention and a regular request rate and all that kind of thing if you didn't have the skills to support it. So yeah, the way we measure it is through retention, client retention, rebooking, future appointments, that kind of thing.
Right, again, so very clear set of
Yeah,
numbers as
yeah.
to, like, there's no favoritism about
No,
it. Do you know what I
no,
mean?
there
Right.
can't be.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Again, but you'd be amazed how many salons don't have any
Structure like
metrics.
that.
Like, if I ask them that question, they'll say, well, when it feels about right, I put
Oh,
someone up.
really?
Well, and it doesn't,
Just
it
imagine
can't
that would
work like that.
upset so many people.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, as a salon owner with three different salons with stylists at different levels, what would you say an average, not an average, a good stylist, what sort of revenue would you expect them to produce? A full-time stylist working 35, 40 hours a week, whatever full-time constitutes, what would you expect them to produce in sales in a week? Is there a sort of a ballpark figure that you put on that?
I don't think so. I guess it's about making sure that they are happy with what they're earning as well, you know.
Yeah.
So from a business perspective, they need to not be in made up wages, so that we're not topping up their wages. But from their side of it, to make sure that they are happy with what they're earning and that it's going in the right direction. But no, in terms of their revenue, it varies from stylist to stylist. It could be
Okay.
somebody at a lower level, an average week could be £1,500, and then someone at a higher level could be 3,000, 4,000. It's a really difficult one to put a number on.
Yeah, yeah, good. Okay, that's good. Okay. Social media. I mean, you're of an age where probably when you started hairdressing, it was just, well, no, it didn't exist, but very quickly it started to exist and
Yeah,
it's made a massive impact on hairdressing, on the
yeah, for
industry.
sure.
How big a role has it played in your business?
Huge. I mean, I think it's evolved. It's evolved the salons hugely in terms of the team's kind of involvement in it. You know, how we're now needing to capture every moment and put it out there
Mm.
for our clients to see, but also from a client's perspective, their needs are so much greater because they're so exposed now to what's available online, and they see these incredible transformations that they are led to believe happen within a finger click, and they can go from black to
Yeah, yeah,
blonde. So
yeah.
expectations from clients are difficult, and that's a challenge that we face in the salons, is managing clients' expectations because of social media. But there's been a lot of positives, and I think it inspires and excites the team to be involved in social media. I think the teams love to be in a meeting, to be gathering content or working on just an entertaining, funny little TikTok reel or something, And bizarrely, something we've been looking at recently is how clients aren't really giving us the interaction that they used to give us on hair posts. So if we post a beautiful before and after, it doesn't get the same amount of interaction that it used to get. Whereas if we post something that's about the team and what they're up to, and a day in the life of Holly, the manager, and some of the transformation she's done today, then it gets a whole load of interaction. So yeah, clients are nosy. They want to see what we're doing. They want to see behind the
Yeah.
scenes.
Yeah. Does it generate a lot of new business
I
for you?
think so. Again, that's hard to measure, and the IT side of it, I probably don't know how much clicks turn, what clicks turn into bookings. I'm not quite sure on that kind of thing, but
Sure.
yeah, we definitely get a lot of inquiries, which we try and turn into consultations. So yeah, I hope it does, but again, I feel like it's hard to measure.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you would have experienced is that at the beginning of your career, I don't know what percentage of hairdressers were employees, but I do know now that in the UK, 64% apparently of hairdressers are
Yeah,
self-employed. And there's lots of reasons behind that. Obviously, for a business like Headmasters, everyone who works for you is an employee, aren't they? You
yes,
don't have any self-employed. Everyone is an
yeah.
employee. What are your thoughts about that? How does that impact on your business, the sort of changing business models and more people wanting to become independent contractors or self-employed? Does that create any problems for you?
I think, yeah, there has been times where it's felt that recruitment was really tough and that we weren't getting people
Mm,
walking through the door, especially people with experience, people with,
mm,
or stylists with experience. But actually, recently I'm finding that people are coming back to the salon. I've,
mm.
probably over the last 6 months taken on a few stylists that maybe used to work for us that left and are coming back. So I'm starting to see people or hairdressers, stylists coming back into the salons to be a
Oh,
part of
interesting.
that culture again and part of a team, part of the what
Yeah.
we have to offer, educational, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm actually seeing people coming back.
Okay, that's very interesting. So they've gone out and tried
Yeah,
it and realized that there's actually a lot that went on behind the scenes to support me here to become the person I've become.
yeah,
And on my own, I simply don't have the time, the resources, or the will to do
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And so they want to be part of something bigger. That's very interesting to
yeah.
hear. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your personal skills before we wrap up. I know it's always hard to answer this question, but aside from your sparkly eyes, your sparkly blue eyes, what would you say your biggest strength is?
So uh, I think something that I've always been really good at is creating strong teams, the mentoring side of it, the coaching side of it. So yeah, creating strong teams of people that want to work hard for me, I guess, and work with me and to create bigger things, I hope.
Okay. All right, that's a great attribute to have. So, and what about you personally? What is it that drives you?
Um, well, I love to see people do well. I love to see people achieving
Yeah,
great things. But what drives me? Nice holidays.
nice
Yeah.
holidays. Yeah,
Yeah, just getting that balance, I think. It's about
yeah,
getting that balance and looking forward to, what's around the corner and yeah, seeing people do well for
yeah.
sure.
Good. Okay. What do you wish you were better at?
That is a hard one, but being able to switch off, I think, as a business owner is really difficult. Probably not sweating quite so much about the small things. I wish
Mm,
I was better at that at times. But yeah, learning to switch off is something that I haven't quite mastered yet.
okay. And we sort of started at this at the very beginning, and so it seems appropriate to wrap up with. You started as an apprentice, stylist, manager, then salon owner. What is the most important thing that you've learned as a leader, as a manager? What would be the thing that you'd pass on to someone and say, do you know what? If you want to succeed as a leader,
Yeah.
this is what you need to always remember. What would it be?
So probably rationalizing things. There are times where, like I said in your previous question about sweating some of the small things, it's about putting things into perspective and focusing on the end goal, knowing what you're working towards. And yeah, just having a strong direction, I think, is definitely really important. And having people around you, your friends and your family, or a supportive partner, which I definitely relied on heavily in the early days, for sure.
Yeah. So, Michael, unfortunately, it's time we started to wrap up. I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I want to say thank you so much for sharing so openly and honestly what it's like being part of a franchise group, because I know a lot of people will have learnt an enormous amount from that. So, thank you ever so much for being so open and honest about that. Okay. So, where can people connect with you on Instagram or other social media channels?
So we're at Headmasters UK. It's probably our main point on Instagram. And then we're Headmasters_Windsor, Headmasters_Farnham, or Headmasters_Cobham are my three.
Great. Okay. Well, I will put those links on our website, growmysalonbusiness.com, and in the show notes for today's podcast. So if you're listening to this podcast with Michael and have enjoyed it, then do me a favor, take a screenshot on your phone and share it to your Instagram stories. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a rating and review on the Apple Podcast app. So to wrap up, Michael Tuff, thank you for being on this week's episode of the Grow My Salon Business Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. If you'd like to connect with us, you'll find us at growmysalonbusiness.com or on Facebook and Instagram at growmysalonbusiness. And if you enjoyed tuning into our podcast, make sure that you subscribe, like, and share it with your friends. Until next time, this is Anthony Whitaker wishing you continued success.